As we roll into our weekly Wednesday chat with Ritch Winter in the business of sports. Of course, Ritch, longtime NHL agent, started actually in the movie industry, but made a mistake on set and just got kicked off, and then never went back in. Ritch,
bald. That was the first Baldwin incident, but no one talks about it anymore.
Oh yeah, if you're in a Baldwin incident, yeah, it'd have to be pretty serious because I have a lot of them.
Wasn't good. Yeah, no, it wasn't any of that, of course.
No, not at all. Now, one of your clients over the years, of course, has been Calvin Pickard, and Calvin Pickard's going to join us in the business of sport. Of course, Calvin now in his second season with the Edmonton Oilers. He debuted in the NHL with Colorado way back in 2014-15. He was a second-round pick of the Avalanche in 2010. Then he had a long stretch outside the NHL before just kept battling and earned himself a spot in Edmonton last year, and then earned himself a contract this offseason. He joins us now on the road in New Jersey. Calvin, how you doing, man?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you just fine. I appreciate you coming on the show. So before we're going to get to some of the technical goaltending stuff like that, which is great. But I do want to start out that lots of your teammates have told me that, Calvin Pickard might be the funniest guy on our team, very good teammate guy. And, that might go outside the norm of a goaltender. Kind of talk about, how you've been able to be a real glue guy in a lot of the rooms that you played on.
Yeah, I know. It's always kind of came natural to me, like my personality, I guess, in a hockey locker room. It's always been pretty natural. I enjoy it. It's so much fun to be going to work and kind of having that locker room setting and going to battle with your teammates. And I just enjoy so much of it. And especially the road trips, you're hanging out with them, you're going for dinners with them, and you're, doing all the different things in different cities, some of the most beautiful cities in the world too. So it's definitely probably going to be the biggest thing I miss when I'm all done.
Yeah. And so, that's something you say came naturally to you, which is nice. And so it really kind of bucks the trend. And maybe goalies get a bad reputation of being different dudes. And so you've played with a lot of different goalies over the years. Is that a fair statement, or is it really kind of maybe old and outdated that goalies are a little bit different?
I think I might be the weird one where the route I take, but no, I mean, I get it. Goalies are, there's only a couple on every team, and it's, it's a selfish position where you're kind of on your own, and the forwards have a bunch of bodies they can bounce things off of, but and the D-men as well. But there's only two of us on every team, and the way goalies prepare and the way it's just a completely different ball game compared to the rest of the team. So I get it. I've definitely seen my fair share of characters over the years, but I think I am the weird one with the route I took.
Now, Calvin, the goalie position is one, and I played hockey, like no high level or anything, low level junior and stuff. And to be honest, as a skater, like, you don't really understand the position. You're just like, hey man, hopefully he makes a few saves for us. And that's great. Were you always a goalie at a young age? What drew you? I know obviously your brother played it. So was it just kind of your parents got you into it? What was with the fascination of being a goalie?
Well, you said it. It was more so Chet. He started a few years before me, and then I got thrown into the net. I can't remember, maybe when I was 7 or 8, and enjoyed it. You kind of have that rotation when you're that young, and I'll never forget my dad picking me up from school when I was 9, and that was the year you had to pick, and I was like, I'll just pick goalie, and I just kind of never looked back, obviously. So I never really thought of it. I was just like, I'm probably better at goalie than I am player. I wasn't a bad player, but at that age, goalies are appealing to young kids. You get to, be the center of attention, and I had some successes as like a young kid. So didn't look back.
Yeah, didn't Dan say like one set of goalie equipment's enough, Calvin? You sure you don't want to play defense?
No, Dan was good. Or Dan and Kathy were good. I mean, the price of equipment now is just gross. But back then, they didn't give me the hand-me-downs. They got me my own stuff, so it was nice.
Way to go!
Now, Did you ever have I'm not aging yourself, but you never really had heavy pads when you played, did you, as a kid?
No, that sounds like you're aging me, but yeah, no, it was. I can't even remember what I'd wear. I've been Vaughn basically my whole life. Maybe once I was 11 or 12. I don't know. I don't even know if I used anything else. But no, they were there. I mean, they're better now than they were then. But No crazy bad pads.
Now, what about the business of goalie equipment now? Like, it's evolved and changed, and it's very specific. You can get pads that will kick out rebounds farther, some that will, kick it out less, depending on your style. And then obviously the skates have really changed over the years. Like, how much have you had to change just from an equipment standpoint over the years to find gear that works for you?
Well, that's a tough question for me because I'm so stubborn, and I just like had a set of equipment. Like I would switch my pads and stuff every year, but I would just use the same stuff over and over and over again. And I was probably one of the last goalies to take the cowling off their skates, and I only took the cowling off my skate 2, 3 years ago because people were like they didn't even make those skates anymore. I was like, I don't know, they work for me. And then I actually tried the new True skates. I'm like, I can't believe I took this long. This is pathetic. But no, I've used Vaughn. The technology's gotten better. But I don't know I talk to other goalies about different things about equipment that it's all gibberish to me. It's just it's over my head, and I've played with some goalie gear nerds that I can't even have a conversation with, where I just have nothing to add to the conversation. But I found what I liked. Vaughn's always been really good to me, and yeah, it's worked, and they've obviously upgraded their pad year after year, and have always been treated well by them.
So when you're talking like, goalie nerd, and as you mentioned to like, what are they focusing in on that you kind of find almost a different language?
Oh, just like different measurements of different parts of your pad, or I honestly can't even tell you. I've heard some crazy stuff, but um, yeah, like different things about chest protectors and how they sit on your body if you're tucking it in your pants. I don't know. I just put it on my gear, and it's just all natural to me, and I don't even really make many adjustments. So, um, yeah, I haven't had good conversations with my partners about gear.
Calvin Pickard joins us. As the relationship of goalies, it's talked about a lot. Like you're obviously you're part of the team, but it's very much a small, like there's 6, 8 defensemen, sometimes 12, 14 forwards. There's usually 2 goalies, right? They don't like having 3. 3 isn't good. Two seems to be more comfortable. And a lot of them talk about the importance of, especially if you have a starter backup, to have a good rapport and relationship. You've been a starter before for a long time in your career, Calvin, and now you're kind of more in the backup role. How do you change and evolve in that? And how do you ensure that relationship is always healthy? Kind of, is it on the backup to be the better guy? Is it on the starter to be the better guy? How does it work in those relationships?
Yeah, all good questions. Yeah, like I've been a starter more so pretty much every year in the American League, other than maybe a year or two. NHL, I was a starter, I guess you could say, for 1 year, but more so backup. Yeah, I don't know. I've played with different types of characters. I think I've seen myself, especially the last couple of years, like I have to bring a different energy to practice. I have to be that guy that works hard and gets the respect of your teammates work ethic wise, because you're not playing as much, and you have to do that stuff anyways.
Right.
But I enjoy it. But it's I would say it's always I've always put a little bit more pressure on myself to make sure that relationship's good, and put forward that work ethic. But yeah, obviously at the same time, like, I'm the backup goalie, sure, I'm not playing as much, but you can't be comfortable in that situation. Like, you want to be playing as much as you can. And the last 2 years I haven't played a ton, but I still get in there every third, fourth game. So I have to be ready selfishly. But when I'm not in the net, I'm obviously ready if I need to be called upon. But I need to be there for my teammates.
Now, I know everybody says I prepare like I'm starting every game. And though, the morning, usually the day before, if you're starting or not. So if for instance, like last game in Buffalo, okay, I know Stu Skinner's starting. Um, can you really prepare the same as when you're starting?
No, it's like people are obviously lying when they say that. Obviously, I've had a million relief appearances over the years, and I'm at a point in my career where I've seen basically all types of situations, and you are ready to hop in there if you need to. But the leading up to the day, like, say I'm starting. I'm not going to blow who's starting the next couple of games, but say I'm starting a game, like that night before I go to sleep, like, I'm thinking about it already. It's already kind of ingrained in my head. But if I'm not, I know there's a game tomorrow. I know I have to have a good morning skate and be prepared. But it just mentally, it's not quite like you're completely dialed in, and then you can kind of see when it's happening. Like, say a goalie gets pulled, you see a goal go in, and then you're like, okay, like it's kind of dialed in here. A couple goals go in, and then it could happen at some point. Or I've seen injuries happen too, where you have no time to think about it. But yeah, I feel like earlier in my career I'd be a little bit more caught off guard, but now sometimes it's almost not bad because you just have no time to think about it. You just go out there and play. So, but yeah, the answer to the question is it's a little bit different when you know you're starting.
We touch on the mental part of the game, Calvin. I remember seeing you play in Colorado, and I thought on a really bad Colorado team, you were very good, right? And then you clear waivers after getting sort of a bad experience in Vegas. And then you're challenged for 4 or 5 years you're constantly called up where you got one or game or two to prove yourself. Can you talk about how that experience is different from getting the confidence you got in Edmonton, or more importantly, the confidence you got in Colorado? Because I think to a large degree, your inability or your challenges to get to the NHL were more related to the opportunity, the environment, and it's tough to come up for a game or two knowing that your game's on the line tonight, and if you play well, you might get another start. If you play well, you might get another start, but that's different than the comfort you have here now, right?
For sure, yeah. It was a tough stretch. Even my first NHL game, I got called up. That crazy story when I got called to Ottawa, and then entered the game 4 minutes in. I remember Patrick Waugh. The next day we played Thursday in Ottawa. Had a practice day Friday in Montreal, and I was no good in my first game. I think, how old would I have been? 22 maybe.
Yeah.
2014, and we basically had open tryouts. So the two American League goalies, it was me and Sammy Atocalio at the time in the minors. We both got called up, and we got to practice. And he's like, "I'm going to determine who's starting tomorrow night in Montreal based on practice." I completely worked my ass off the whole practice, obviously, and I got to start again. He's like, "Now you know how the league works. Like, you got to be good tomorrow." And I did put some pressure on myself because if I play bad that game, then who knows? I played well that night, whatever, and then I kind of got some confidence from that. But then you think you're going to be in one place your whole career, and then obviously the Vegas thing happens, and then when you go elsewhere, you really have to reestablish yourself. It's not like you have the same runway that with the team you just had, because they got to get to know you and see what you're all about. And then I played that whole year in the minors in Toronto. I ended up getting traded to Toronto, and then I just got sporadic opportunities for a few years. When I'd get called up in Detroit, yeah, I was probably going to get sent back down, but I wasn't comfortable there. A big thing for me is being comfortable in the locker room, comfortable, being on the ice with those teammates. And I felt like I didn't know anybody, and I was like, tiptoeing myself around the ice, and I didn't have much success in Detroit. The odd fine game, but and then I got to Bakersfield 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, I guess, almost 3 years ago, and got comfortable there. Great locker room, played well that year, and then obviously last year coming up, I didn't know really what to expect, and I get thrown on. I played against Florida my first game, still uncomfortable. Like, played okay, not great, and but to get another opportunity again, you just never know how many opportunities you're going to get. Played well, and then I kind of got on into a run because we had such a good team, and or we do have such a good team. It's nice to play behind that, but yeah, it was a challenge for a while. But the biggest thing for me is being comfortable with my teammates in that setting.
Well, and it's really strange, Calvin, like how small a decision can have such a big impact. So for whatever reason, the coach in Las Vegas decides Malcolm Subban's a better choice than you are. We think, trivia question, who was the number one pick of the Las Vegas Golden Knights in the expansion draft? You know that one, right?
I still tell everybody.
Yeah. and all of a sudden you get put on waivers at the worst time possible for a goalie, at the end of training camp when every single position is largely filled. So that decision, you stay in Vegas, you might have a Stanley Cup, you might be a starter. Like, it's just fascinating to me how so many guys, bad luck derails a career or puts it. And I think the real thing that makes me so proud of you is you continue to stay with it. I don't know of anybody else. I don't think I've represented anybody else that took 14 years to get a one-way contract. But that little decision made by a goalie coach who I think made the wrong decision might have cost you 6 or 8 years in the NHL, don't you think?
It's hard to say. I feel like everybody's got so many different paths. You know that. You've seen so
Yeah.
many different players, but I did not expect it going into that year. I played 50 games the year before, went to the World Championships, was the starter for Canada, and then all of a sudden I was playing in the minors. But it was the hand I was dealt, and I went to Toronto, and Lou treated me really well. I didn't play a ton in the minors. I played on a good team. We won the Calder Cup, and then they gave me a good contract again, but it was kind of a log jam, and I had to figure it out. And then I got bounced to Philly, couldn't get comfortable there, and then bounced to Arizona, never really played, and then I was just kind of on a carousel. But I mean, I can't speak for everybody's path, but I've sure met a lot of friends along the way, I'll tell you that.
That's very true. Calvin Pickard joins. Calvin, we're going to take a quick break. When I come back, I want to talk about that carousel and in a position where each organization has a different goalie coach, and now you're working with guys all the time, like picking up a system for a forward and defenseman is one thing. You know, goalies for the longest time are really the only ones who kind of have an individual coach who works with them on a lot of the technical side. So I want to talk about maybe the challenges of that from going from Colorado to Toronto to Arizona to Philly to Detroit in a 6-year span. You're going different guys every year, and how that messaging maybe, what actually happens with the business of the goalie coach coming up next here on the Business of Sports, Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Welcome back. Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Sports1440.ca is always presented by PlayAlberta.ca, where you can get in the game, use the promo code Gregor50, and you get a free $50 play at PlayAlberta.ca. Jason Gregor, Ritch Winter with you as we also have Oilers netminder Calvin Pickard joining us inside the Business of Sports. And Calvin, thanks for taking the time. I know you got a team dinner, so we won't keep you much longer. But going from Colorado, then you go to Toronto's organization for a year, then you're into Philly for a bit, then you're into Arizona, then you're into Detroit, all in a span of 5 different organizations in 4 years. And each stop, each team has a different goalie coach. So how is it for a guy who comes in there? You're there for in some cases a year in Toronto, you're there for a few months in Philly, you're there for a few months in Arizona.
And keep in mind he's up and down. So,
yeah.
So he's seen 12 goalie coaches.
So how much can they work on it? With a goalie coach, how much time does it take to maybe trust the guy to know, okay, I really want to work with this guy? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen my good amount of goalie coaches for sure. Going all the way back to my first year pro, we had Kirk McLean that would come in once every few weeks, but there wasn't much, there wasn't much instruction there. Obviously, I wouldn't see him much. It was a crazy time because I feel like that was the time when goalie coaches became more full-time, because at that point they weren't.
Yeah.
And then they brought in Francois Allaire my second year in Colorado. And coming out of junior, I was just a freewheeling, free spirit goalie. I would challenge up to the hash marks, and I had no technique. And it was the perfect time for me to run into him because he was the opposite on the extreme on the other side. So, but it took me a full year to trust the system, but I needed to get some more base to my game, and then I needed to trust that system. And but yeah, it took me some time because I was thinking all the time when I was in net, and that is death for a goalie. But then after that, yeah, so I go to, where would I gone? Toronto. Well, I went to Vegas, and then the goalie coach there, we got off on the wrong foot. I don't know. I just don't think he really even wanted me there. But and then Toronto was great, actually. Really good guy, Piero Greco. He's with the Islanders now, and he kind of toned me down a bit. I was losing.
Well, I think we might have lost Calvin there, so we'll have to fix that. We'll get him back here in a second. Cons, we'll try to reconnect with him because it's very fascinating to me, and because it's a position that lots of people talk about, and I'm not sure we have Calvin's back with us now.
You got me?
Yeah, I got you now there. So
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Where was I? Goalie coaches. Yeah, but I feel like the last.
Yeah, you're in Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto with Piero Greco and amazing guy. And I feel like in pro hockey, especially the NHL, it's about the personality and managing those goalies. Yeah, you're going to get your work in, but you play all the time, so there isn't many technical fixes where you're really grinding stuff down to change during the season. That stuff happens during the summer. But yeah, like Dustin Schwartz here, uh, we're both kind of cut from the same cloth. We really see eye to eye. But at this point in my career, a minor tweak here or there, we'll watch a bunch of video and see what we'd like to do or change. But it's not like, like my last game out, I let in 4 goals on 0 shots against Anaheim, and it's not like I'm waking up the next day and I'm completely changing my game. We actually said I'm not going to change anything. I'd like to play a couple of those plays differently, but um, at this point, if I'm clear-minded and doing the right things, which I'm, striving to do most days, I'll be fine.
So-
And just so, but there's been one constant in your life when it comes to goalie coaches, right? And he's been there. And I think maybe tell us a little bit about what the role Paul Fricker's played in your life.
Well, I mean, I still talk to him every single day. It's actually a shame how I didn't even say him during that whole question, but he's more of like a friend. And I mean, he started as my goalie coach in junior, but he's more of like a close friend of mine.
Okay.
I talk to him every single game day. I'll talk to him after every game I play. Um,
Is that
Yeah.
more, Calvin, for mental support? Do you find the conversations with him are more mentally oriented, or
yeah, for sure. We touch on everything. If I'm gonna buy a car, I run it by him. But yeah, he's outstanding. On mindset and talking things through and what kind of approach you need to take. And I owe a lot to him. I'm so glad I got the bounce that I got when I met him when I was 15, because going through my junior career in Seattle, obviously I played a ton, but we had some tough nights. We weren't a very good team, and he was right there by my side, basically saying all the right things and how to act. And I was well prepared to go to pro because of him.
Calvin, I want to go back to, you mentioned how, with Dustin Schwartz, you'll go over each game. Okay. So when you say, that Anaheim game, I would like to read a play different. Do you know, like right after the goal, that you made an incorrect read or not, for instance? Like, do you need to see it on video to really, how does it work in the mind of a goalie, after a goal? Because now sometimes you play the play great and they just score, right? So how do you know when you played it well and when you didn't? Does it happen in the game, or do you not worry about it till after the game?
Oh, I mean, I could tell you in real time. I can screw up a play in real time and already know that I've screwed it up. And sometimes your mind wanders. Sometimes you just make a bad decision. Sometimes you're looking the wrong way. Whatever. A lot of different things happen, but um, I'm a pretty good self corrector, and one good quality is, yeah, I'm self aware with goaltending. I have a pretty good goalie mind, um, in terms of catching stuff when it happens. Obviously, you like to watch video and see it from a different angle, and it usually feels worse than it looks.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's I know usually right away what I did wrong.
And so that's fascinating to me, because inside the game, so let's say, you talked about how a lot of the foundation is done in the off season. Then you get to the season, you're practicing lots, you're playing, you're not making a huge amount of technical changes. Maybe, if all of a sudden you get into a bad habit, you probably try to dial that back, I would say. But so then during a season with the goalie coach and you, is it just reaffirming the foundations of what you spent the summer working on? And in your case, at this stage of your career, you've been around now, you've been drafted in 2010, you've been around the NHL and goalie coaches for 14 plus years. Do you kind of just outline what I do in the summer, and then when the season comes, I got to believe in that, and I just try to fine tune it rather than look to change anything?
Yeah, very well said, for sure. I feel like the summer is the time where you can make tweaks and, practice it and think about doing it while you're in the net, because, there's no game in the summer. So, but yeah, once it's the season time, I mean, you get a little bit of that in training camp too, but then once the season starts rolling, you don't want to be thinking, because you don't want to burn games when you're out there thinking in the cage. So, um, but yeah, no, it's a lot of fine tuning. We kind of see where our chances, the chances that we give up in games, and we kind of try and replicate drills around that. Obviously, like shots from, just inside the circle where they're coming from, and then we'll replicate drills from it. We'll do post work recoveries around the net, wraps and little pass outs with teams that are, good around the net, say Carolina, like, a lot of stuff around the net. Do a lot of low to high stuff with traffic. Our drills in practice from Knobber too really replicate a lot of stuff that we see. So, um, yeah, it's a lot of fine tuning for sure.
Calvin, tell me, there's one thing that's always bothered me as I watch pregame. When you're warming up, there's nothing you face in warm up that replicates a game. Has that ever bothered you? Have you ever thought about it?
Oh, I've always thought about it. I mean, it's always been
What
the
are those
case.
guys doing? Like, there's no screens. There's not. They're coming in and taking shots like it's pond hockey. It just seems like the worst way to prepare a goalie.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. It's never going to change. But yeah, I don't know. I've always been able to try and take something out of everything, though. And you say pregame warm up, you work on tracking the puck and seeing the puck hit your gear, and what kind of depth you're using, or your patience and things like that. I've always tried to be able to take something, even if the drill or whatever we're doing is crazy and unrealistic. But yeah, that ain't changing. Pre-game warm-up's not changing. A lot of the shooting drills in practice aren't changing. It's just the way it is.
Now, if you could for a day make the perfect goalie pregame, what would you want to see in pregame that would help you be ready for the game?
Well, I mean, we get a goalie session before pregame. That's like 3 or 4 drills where it's, exiting off our post in different spots and getting a shot, and then an east-west shot with a one-timer, and then, a couple little dot relief shots. We get our fix in. We got a good little thing going, me, Shorty, and Skins, where
Oh, sorry, I meant warm up, like the half hour before the game.
oh, you're talking, okay, sorry, I was thinking pregame skate. Oh, I mean, I'm kind of on my own there. I don't think 2 goalies are going to outrule 22 guys, but
But if you got to you won the vote, and you're saying, "Okay, guys, this warm up, these are the drills I want because they're going to help."
Here's
me.
your chance to
Here's
change
your chance.
hockey.
What would it be?
Change hockey forever.
yeah, I'd be probably pretty nervous because all the guys would be shooting at my head or something. But I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would try and probably set up one of our goalie sessions, but I don't think that would be well received. But
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple good things. Like you get a good sweat, you get out there. I mean, I'm always the biggest thing in warm up is tracking the puck for me and seeing the
Okay.
puck and getting my legs going. You get a good sweat but yeah, I mean, I haven't really ever thought about that just because it ain't changing.
Now, I've never asked a goalie this question, Calvert. So you're in the game, and you got guys like Ovechkin can bomb one-timers, Leon Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard's got a rocket, Jake Wallman, I was looking at him, he can fire bombs. When in the game, are you seeing all the shots, or in some of them, are you just going across to say, I'm playing the odds, I'm getting in position because I can't see a 98-mile-an-hour shot coming from 20 feet?
If you really bear down and see it off the stick, you should be able to see most shots. I mean, obviously, if it's really close or there's traffic, it's going to be tough. I find, I mean, I just played Ovechkin a couple weeks ago, and he shoots everything from anywhere. That's why he has a million goals. But the curve, like on a guy's stick like that, he always shoots a rolling puck, and a lot of his shots come off rolling, and those are so hard to save.
Okay.
And but yeah, it's some shots are harder, and you got to put yourself in the right spot just in case you don't track it that well, and you got a better chance that it hits you. You got to do the work before the shot is happening and before the pass gets there. But um, I take pride in my puck tracking. It's a big thing, obviously, for a little bit of a smaller goalie, and like I need to have that dialed in, especially at this level.
The position and how much it's changed from even when you started until now, and how goalies change the way they play the game, right? Like there's not many stand-up goalies anymore. There's barely any hybrids. Like everybody's a butterfly goalie. There was the reverse, VH that's come in now lately. How have you adapted to the changes? Is there some you liked? Is there some that you didn't like originally, but now you're like, oh man, it's better for me? What's worked in the evolution of changing that position for you?
Yeah. And when I was in junior, I had nothing I had going for me on the posts. Like I would jam guys at the hash marks. I would sell the farm, and if he passed, too bad it's not on me. But yeah, no, the game's so much faster now, and there's so much more east-west. There's way less shooting. You can't play too far out. There's chances you can get out and be a little bit more aggressive, but the game has changed. I mean, even my first couple years pro, if it was a 3-on-2, it was going wide and the guy was shooting far pad for a rebound, and it was fantastic. But now it's like pass, 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 like retreat, backdoor pass. It's overpass factory these days, and you got to be so patient. You can't go down early, and the guys are so skilled now, so you got to be careful.
You're an NHL goalie. Do you watch other goalies? Like, can you steal or take things from other goalies, or is every goalie's style somewhat unique to themselves? And you're like, hey, I might be really good at this. Bob over here, Stuart Skinner does something better than me. I do. Like, how do you take things or not take things from other goalies and try to implement them into your game?
Yeah, I do. I do like watching other goalies. There's not a ton of guys around my size anymore. A lot of guys that are big can play a little bit deeper. Stewart's one of them. Um, what works for him is probably not going to work for me. What works for me probably ain't going to work for him. I could take bits and pieces of different guys, whether they retreat on a rush play that, puts them in a better position in case there's a pass here or pass there. But my game's built on battle, compete, tracking, and work. And obviously the practice time and the time of the summer is when I can build the foundation, and then the biggest thing for me is the battle and compete, just to keep the puck out of my net. And once I lose that, I ain't playing anymore.
Calvin Pickard joins us. Calvin, it's your third year in the Oilers organization. Ritch alluded to the fact 14 years you finally get your first one-way deal.
That's a lie, bro. That's a lie.
It's kind of what I thought, Rich?
Like, what are you talking about, Rich?
What did we do a one-way somewhere else and I forgot?
I feel like I've had a bunch of one-ways.
What the heck is going on?
You're
Rich is
losing
getting
it.
old, eh? Jeez.
You are losing it.
Who's had more pucks in the head? Apparently it's me.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, so you've had lots of them. Well, that's good. But you battled around for a long time. When you came in the organization, you mentioned you and Schwartz see things a lot the same. So would you work when you signed? Like, did you work right away with him that summer, or does he kind of have to get to see you first? How does a relationship start when you come to a new organization? And let's say after last year, and then you signed, what did you do different this offseason that you hadn't done previous?
When I signed with Edmonton, I did not see Schwarty in the summer. I continued to work with Paul, which I do every summer. I still work with Paul every summer. Couple conversations on the phone here and there. And then this past summer, after the playoffs, I told myself I'm not skating till August, because even though I wasn't playing in the playoffs, I was skating every day and I was practiced out at that point, and needed some time away. And then August came. I ended up coming to Edmonton pretty early, so we got some skates in, before camp and things like that. So, yeah, no, it's more the dialogue, and he was, checking in to see what I was doing, and we were talking about different things, and I spend so much time on the ice with him throughout the year, and he knows my game really well, and it's easy to talk to him about it. He's very approachable, very personable, and it's nice to have those conversations with him.
The position of goaltender, Calvin, you got to have a short memory, and I think you have to have really thick skin. There's probably no more pressure position in hockey. The forward makes a terrible mistake. If a forward misses a wide open net, people don't get nearly as mad as if a goalie allows a bad goal, right? Like, even though both can really alter the game, the one always gets more. How have you worked on that thick skin aspect of a goalie to not allow, the odd time you let a bad goal to impact you? And then maybe conversely, the outside noise, because I'm sure maybe you hear it, maybe not so much from teammates at the NHL level, but maybe in junior and growing up as a kid, you let in a bad goal. Hey, buddy, you suck. Like, how did you learn to get over that as a goalie?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes, for sure, because you're back there, you letting a bad goal, it shouldn't go in, and then it's on the team. Like, we're down 1-0, or we're down 2-1, and that's on me. So it's tough sometimes, but it's happened before. It's going to happen again. And yeah, you got to put it away because that goal is going to be on you for the rest of the game. But you can't let in another one, or you can't let in another freebie. So I've had nights where, especially in junior, where it would piss me off, and then one bad goal would turn into three bad goals. Then it's not good at all. But yeah, I've gotten better with that, especially the last couple of years. I feel like I'm at a point in my career where I know if I go the other way, if I get angry, if I get frustrated, it's not going to be pretty. And if I can put it away and figure it out after the game, or talk about it, or realize I made a mistake, then fine. If I battle back and make a couple big saves, but it's the hard. It is a hard part being a goalie when it's you get those mental hurdles on you for sure.
You ever when was the last time you played hockey with the like a skater stick? How's your shot? And if you could play out, what position would you play?
I played summer league with all my buddies there for about 7 or 8 years. I had to stop though; I'd get too worked up. And but I was a forward. I was a forward. I like scoring
Okay.
goals.
Oh yeah.
But I just like, you get out there, and goalie, you're so secluded. If you get bumped, whatever, the guy's going to the net. But like, people would slash me, and I'd get so pissed off. I was like, why are we doing this? And then I just had to stop playing. This is, I don't know. I haven't played in maybe 8 or 9 years.
Okay.
It was the early 20s. I was playing in the NHL when I was still going back and playing summer league. It was so
Oh, that's awesome.
with all my buddies, but yeah, it had to come to an end.
How were your hands? Like, how would you like? Were you a checking forward? Were you skill guy running the power play? What kind of skater were you?
I mean, summer league, I was just cheating for offense. That's all I was doing.
Before I let you go, of your teammates, if you were in an emergency situation and one of them has to play goal, who are you picking and why?
Emergency situation. Who would be good? I don't know. Pods is always shooting on the goalie, so I feel like he has a bit of a grasp on things. And he's got some screws loose, but
You need somebody who's not scared of the puck.
yeah, honestly, I'll go Pods.
Pod Colson. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll ask him. So you've never seen any of your teammates ever put the pads, like, for fun? Because I know some teams have done it where one day a guy will go out as a skater and play goal. You ever had that happen where one of your
Yeah,
teammates
I don't think most teams let that happen because people don't realize how hard goalie is, and they can
Oh,
they
God.
can, they can pull something quick. So I don't think that's gonna happen.
No, not anymore. All right. Well, Calvin, thanks so much for this. We really appreciate it. Continued success this season and into the playoffs.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.
There you go. That's Calvin Pickard. So Pod Colton. Well, we'll have to see how his goaltending is. Well, Ritch, geez, he's all fired up. It's not 14 years to get a one-way, but he did battle for a long time, up and down.
Yeah.
And interesting going to all those different organizations. And I liked him explaining, because I think it's really good to get that, because I always thought changing a goalie coach mid-season probably isn't going to, if you think that the technical aspects are what holding your goalie back, that this guy's coaching, it's not going to be changed during the season. It's just
I still can't get over how good a job I did for guys in the minors all the time, and he got all these one-way contracts. That was good that he remembered that. Yeah, no, you don't want to make any changes. I know, talking to Calvin this year, we had a goalie analytics guy that look at and suggest his paddle is a little bit too long. It's causing his posture to be different. It would affect his game in some fashion that Steve had told me, but Calvin's like, we can't. I just, not during the season.
Not going to change his stick length.
It's just too much. I think it creates more of a psychological problem than it
for
does
sure.
anything else.
Yeah, I could see that.
Now all of a sudden my paddle's too short. That's why that went in.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the paddle, but it would create all those dynamics.
Yeah, no, for sure. That would. I remember, I've talked to even skaters. Like, sometimes a guy cuts a centimeter off his stick and he feels like it's a massive change, right? Like, some guys have done it, but as a forward, even there's not as much focus on, well, geez, if I mishandle the puck a few times in the game, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's not going to be a difference maker if all of a sudden I'm trying to change, how I'm pushing off or how much ice I'm taking on a odd man rush. And now suddenly I'm not comfortable in it. Now I'm coming, oh, geez, should I take more? I take less. Well, now the goal goes in and you screw yourself. And
like Calvin said, you can't be thinking. If your goalie's thinking, you're screwed.
Now, being an agent of a goalie where there's obviously fewer opportunities. Right now, there's fewer goalies too, I guess, overall,
Yeah.
and growing up in it. But
None coming out of Canada anymore. So that helps the Europeans quite a bit.
yeah, how different is it, being an agent for a goaltender? Whereas, because you talked about it, if a goalie gets put on waivers, the second last day of training camp, the odds of them getting claimed are infinitely low. We've seen lots of other guys.
They're probably close to zero because the fact is every organization has 5 goalies, 2 for the NHL, 2 for the American Hockey League, and 1 call up for the East Coast League. They've got all those guys.
Yeah.
Now, unless somebody else is put on waivers, and generally they're not because that's their 5th goalie or their 4th goalie, right? So, or maybe they have 3 goalies who aren't eligible for waivers. So it's just really frustrating. And I never saw it coming. They pick Calvin the first, he's the first pick. George McPhee calls me and says, I'm sorry, our goalie coach thinks Malcolm Subban is, going to be a better goalie long-term than Calvin. Now, what do? There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So we completely lost control. Whereas I can decide in the summer, like when he signed with Edmonton, I was thinking, Keith Gretzky, to his credit, did a lot of work on both sides of the equation. He talked to a number of Calvin's former teammates, some that knew him well from Winnipeg, and he'd done his research. And I think we got the sense like Keith really thought he could challenge for a job here. And I think that's what excited Calvin. And I think when Calvin, I had a conversation with Ken Holland last Christmas, and he was saying, we're talking about Adam Ernie too, because Adam's got 3 children and he's trying to keep Adam up, because if he salary cap problem, but he wants to be in with his family. Ken's a pretty good guy that way. But if Calvin goes down and they bring up Campbell, the cap squeeze causes Adam to go to the minors. He'll miss Christmas with his family. And I remember saying to Ken, Calvin's not going anywhere because he got that level of support and comfort. I just knew he wasn't going to give it up. And it's interesting because I remember Dominik Hasek virtually in tears when he was sent to Indianapolis, wanted to go home and quit.
Now, this is early, first year in his career.
Yeah,
right?
he's a big star from Europe. He comes here. He doesn't think he can play. He wants to go home. And I said, are you kidding me, man? You're the best goalie I've ever seen. And so I made a deal with him. I said, I'll tell you what, Dom, if I can't get you traded by the end of the summer, I'll work to help you get out of your contract. A year and a half later, he wins the MVP in the Vezina. It's small. I always tell players, especially a player like Dom, even at that stage, he's top 40 in the world at what he does. And you're a Ferrari. If you're a car, you're like a Formula One Ferrari. These guys don't have to change the body or the engine. They're making carburetor adjustments, fuel mix adjustments. It's very small.
Yeah.
And the difference between Calvin Pickard maybe having 300 NHL games and way less than 100 is a decision that probably certainly turned out to be wrong. Malcolm Subban's no Calvin Pickard at this stage. He made a wrong decision. That put Calvin in a position on waivers, unable to compete for 5 years, trying to get a look at the NHL level with 1-game shots. It basically changes the trajectory of his career. How many guys, I say this all the time, people say, who's the best player you ever represent? I said, the most skilled player? You don't know him.
Yeah, well, it's true, right?
Because sometimes it just didn't happen for him.
Yeah, the fine line, obviously we can exclude the guys like McDavid and those type of players, but you get to lots of other players in the league, and having someone who gives you an opportunity or likes you, even dating back to your junior career, you're 16 years of age and you come into a junior organization, that coach likes you, and all of a sudden, you're playing 50 minutes a night instead of playing 7 minutes.
But the coaches are never wrong, Jason, because what happens is when they decide he's a 4th liner and he can't score anymore, they put him on the 4th line. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. How does Martin Straka get bought out? So he's making $750,000 a year in Florida. They pay him $500,000 to go away. And a year later, he gets 94 points as the 4th leading scorer in the league. How does that happen? Well, if Marty Straka gets fed up and frustrated and goes back to Pills in Czech Republic, he doesn't play 8 more years.
Right. Yeah.
He doesn't make an extra $25 million.
Yeah.
It's small little things. And that's why, I've had 47 All-Star Game appearances, 6 Vezinas, 2 MVPs, a Norris Trophy, 2 Conn Smythes, and 82 Stanley Cup rings earned by guys bought out, never drafted, or waived and cleared. Don't give up on them.
Yeah.
But we don't. Teams do, and to their detriment, generally. How many guys would have liked to have Dom one of those 2 times he was on waivers that year for $2,500?
Right. Yeah. There's lots of different players, at different levels, at different positions that, this guy's put on waivers. That means he's a terrible player. No, it just means somebody's evaluation of that player at that time was, We don't think he could help our team. Now, in some cases, guys go on waivers, and you know what? They're just not NHL players, and that's going to happen.
Well,
for
but
sure.
there's other factors. Barry
Right.
Trotz told me last year, whether you like it or not, Rich, the guy's got a two-way contract. We start seeing him as an American Hockey League player. Because why did they give him a two-way contract? They know him better than we do.
Right.
And generally it's wrong. And that's where the great pro scouts are invaluable. They find that guy that was given up, prevented from getting the opportunity. Like it's funny, Marty Straka at 5-on-5, his points per minute played 5-on-5 never changed when he had 28 points in Florida as compared to when he got 94 in Pittsburgh. The only difference was more minutes, even strength, way more power play. Obviously, then of course he's playing with Yager, Francis, and a bunch of guys like that. So he's getting a lot of opportunity with some high quality players. But how is it? Like you could have Marty Straka on waivers for nothing, Dom Hasek on waivers for nothing, Robert Schwela, Pavel Dimitra. I can go through just my clients. You could build 5 Stanley Cup winners off of the clients I've had waived and cleared or never drafted. It's unbelievable.
Well, and I think it's probably a good reason why you have waivers, because the old someone's garbage is the other man's treasure, right? And
Exactly.
some situation now, maybe a team like Ray Whitney was in Edmonton, they had Waite and Arnott as their centers. He wasn't going to play top 2 line center here, right? So it was almost like a gift for him to get put on waivers to go to a team where he could have an opportunity to play that role, and he ends up to play 1,000 more games.
The other
right?
problem
Now, you
is,
probably should have traded him instead of put him on waivers.
Well, the other problem is the sort of kowtowing that GMs quite often do to coaches, right? Like, I'm not going to tell them who to play. I'm not going to tell them who to play and then fire them for playing who I said to play. And I remember Miro Shatan. I remember saying to Glenn Sather, asked for a trade. He went to Buffalo. I said, Glenn, it's like, you just gave away a 40-goal scorer. He said, well, it wasn't going to be that here. I'm thinking, like, if I'm the GM, I'd be saying, okay, Ron Lowe, I think he's a penalty power play, or it's a power play guy. He scored the same number of goals as Korea at the Olympics. Okay, I'll tell you what. You don't like him. I disagree. You play him first power play minutes for 5 games, and if he doesn't work out, we'll get rid of him. But Glenn didn't do that, and he scored 40 goals twice in Buffalo and went on to score another 300 goals. Like, just how does the old-fashioned way of doing things? I'm not going to tell the coach what to do. Well, what if it was Dominik Hasek, Miro Shatan, Martin Straka? Like, it's just interesting. But that kowtowing could prevent someone from getting that opportunity, right?
Ed goes, hey, guys, who was the last great waiver pickup in the last 5 years? Gustav Forsling would probably be top of that list. Pretty important player for the Florida Panthers on their back end.
Exactly.
Right, so
and you can go through the list.
Yeah.
It's not just who is on waivers, who is a 7th round pick, an 8th round pick, not drafted. What other business? On average, NHL players, NHL teams select core players, which is top 6 forwards, 3rd line center, top 4D, number 1 goalie, the guys that they need to win at a core. They draft those at around 10% of the players they drafted. What other business accepts that level of performance?
Yeah.
Try that out on a save percentage, Calvin, right? It's just like, but everybody's about the same. Well, I'm thinking, like, so what? Let's be 15%. Let's be 18%.
Yeah.
If we're 18%, get one more core player every year, we're winning the Stanley Cup or challenging for it every year. Well, we don't need to worry about improving because, well, crapshoot. And then how many other businesses? The most important position on the ice is goaltender. And what does the operator, the senior executive of the business, tell us constantly? I don't know. Goalie's a crapshoot. I have no idea what that is. That's like saying, we hired the CFO. I didn't know he didn't know how to run a calculator. Geez, like, do they need calculator? Like, it's mind-boggling that this stuff is accepted.
Yeah.
And the team that figures it out applies a little AI to the formula, improves their draft performance by 4, 5, 8%. They'll be the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, for sure. The Dallas Stars a little bit right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Jimmy
they're
Neal,
drafting
my buddy,
lately.
high school buddy from Drumheller.
Yeah, they've been good. Rich, great stuff, man. As always, have yourself an awesome week. We'll chat with you next Wednesday.